welcome to another Random Code stream. This is part 3 to do just some random general refactorings in this library called Rocks. It's a mocking library in C#. Look at the website if you want more details. But I'll look in the description. It has a link to the issue I've been working on and I've been doing in the last 2 streams. I'll give my music going in the background. Okay, so I've been working on this for couple of streams. Some things I've gotten hung up on and have kind of deferred. The thing is that I'm not sure if the rest of the stuff I'm going to do is really going to help from a performance standpoint, though that's not really the point of doing all these things. It's to make the code base slightly easier to read. So that said, I do want to try to make more progress on some of this stuff. The real one that I think might help is this is one that a guy named Mitch, who was doing some stuff in Rocks for a while and now has disappeared. Mitch, if you're out there, please come back. He came up with this idea about using what I believe, if I'm looking this up here, is, I'll come back to this one in a second, is a interpolated string handler. And somehow if you do this, this could potentially make things a little easier and also a little bit faster with better memory usage. I'm not sure though. I really don't know. I've never used one of these things. I know, well, I have. I mean, if you're using an interpolated string, it has a default one underneath the scenes. But I'm kind of curious as to what Mitch was proposing here, because he mentions the end result, but he never actually shows what this thing is that they were talking about. So Mitch, if you're out there, come back. Please come back. I think this would be interesting to use. Even if you can't do it, update what you meant to do here, and then I can implement it myself. That's perfectly fine. But anyway, I might reach out to him specifically today on messages and just try to see, hey, if you don't have the time anymore to do this stuff, that's perfectly fine, but could you just give me a sample or an example of what you're trying to do, and then I can go from there. Anyway, so we'll just keep moving on to stuff. There is one that I put on the list here, which is if I go to this thing here, did I write down where? It's in gets constraints. Yeah, side note, I don't know how to find if the default constraint exists. Well, okay, I was about to say it won't, but I don't know if we wouldn't possibly run into it. Okay, so the default constraint for compatibility with existing code or overridden and explicitly implemented generic methods could not include explicit constraint. Let me zoom in a little bit. Constraint clauses, nullable of T in an overridden or explicitly implemented method is treated as nullable where T is a value type. Makes perfect sense, right? To allow annotations for type parameters constrained. So here's the one we care about. To allow annotations for type parameters that are not constrained to reference types or value types. What other types are there? Oh, I guess they're saying you didn't constrain it to this or this. Like this one here, F2, doesn't have a constraint on either one. C#9 allows a new where T equals default constraint. It is an error to use a default constraint other than on a method override or explicit implementation. It is an error to use a default constraint when the corresponding type parameter in the overridden or interface method is constrained to a reference type or value type, blah, 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 blah. So I noticed when I was going through the code, that this is kind of a to-do. Do I need to care about this default thing? Now, it's saying here this should only show up on a method override or explicit implementation. So I have not run into it yet because I don't have errors that or nobody's reported this, but I've always been kind of wondering, is this a very, very small bug? Because the fact is, this is kind of a case that I don't think a lot of people would run into. But could we have a base class that has an abstract method and another base abstract class that has that overrides it but keeps it virtual and adds this? What would happen? So we can just quickly do this here. We can say we have public abstract class, base class. Okay, and then we're going to put in and we're going to call it abstract. Oh, I don't care about comments. Okay. And now let's say we have public subclass, which derives from base class. Now this is probably, yeah. So we want to say, well, how would we do this? If we say here, do we tell it to generate overrides? So we can say F2, generate an override. And here's your default, okay? But we want it to be virtual. Think. Marks an override could not be marked as new or virtual. Okay, fine. But we haven't sealed it. So if I say public class, final class, subclass, I cannot type. And I say here, generate overrides. There should be an F2. And this is where we need to do that. Okay. Where the type, like this subclass here would be the type that Rox is giving you. The Rox is that somebody's given to Rox and said, create a mock for it. Well, this is overridable because it's virtual, so we want to do it. Now, if we don't put this here, what happens? A lot of bad things go on. No suitable method to override. But as soon as we do that, everything goes fine. So this potentially is a bug in Rox. So let me actually analysis test generators, constraints. Let's put one in that's exactly like this. Generate with default constraint. And let me change these to interfaces. Not because it just makes the generated code a little bit smaller. I don't think this... is valid on... Oh, okay, so it would only show up if it was a class. It would not show up if it was an interface. Okay, these are just the missing XML comments. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we'll grab these two. And I don't think we need that. We want to give it this. Okay. And files are going to be called this. Okay, now it's going to take a couple of runs because we got to get the actual generated code. Oh. Wait. Okay, first we can delete these, but then there was another error. Wait, we do? I don't think that's actually even valid, is it? That's not, it's not the same. The constraint isn't default. It returns a default. So wait, what are we doing there? Default constraint. Why would equals get hash code to string get service? I don't understand why I even called this method default constraint, because it's not a default constraint. Okay, default constraint. Wait, what? With generated default constraint. But this doesn't have a default constraint in this. Because we're overriding, though, we have to put it on. I think is... But what I don't have is something that says... default current block. Crap. These are just from the make. Okay, so I don't understand why I call this method. I don't even know I have it in a test with constraints. Yeah, I'm really confused by this one. I mean, I'm sure it's in here for a reason. I'm not going to take it out, but I don't understand why I called the test method this. If I take this class and I just put it up here, and then I say public class sub stuff, base stuff, and then I say generate overrides, forget service. Big deal. I think I'm going to just rename I really don't know. I really don't what this test has anything to do with testing constraints. My brain. This one does, though. This one does. So many times have I said I hate this window? Whoops. Wait. There. Okay, and then we take this. And we say replace with that. No. My brain is not working. Maybe I need more coffee. There we go. Coffee's always a good thing. Tomorrow is my birthday. Yippee! Wait, what are you complaining about in here? What in the world? I just copied. Oh, the last line has too much space for some reason. Ugh. There we go. Okay. Now I can do make one. But the point of all this is that I think I'm missing that I did not put the default constraint on. We'll see. Does it consider this to be okay? It passes. Okay, so you don't need it. But that doesn't make sense. So we are putting it on. Okay, so we are detecting that we have to do it. So it's not a bug, but we have a test around this now. So the reason I did all this is because I wanted to make sure that we actually had a test that really does test what I wanted to. So let's come here and just put that in there as a marker so I don't have to come back to this. So the whole point of that is that it takes this out of the equation. We don't have to do this. We don't have to worry about it. And I put a note in, and I put a test in, so hopefully I don't come back to this code and go, why did I not do this? Let's do a couple of other easy ones, because it's a Sunday morning. This one should be easy. I do like to have things in their own class, so that's easy. That was an easy one. Whoops. Was there another easy one I could do? There was, oh yeah, this one we might want to do. That would be fun for a Sunday morning. There was something I said that I wasn't using. Yeah, here, projected qual. So this method does not need this because it's not being used. And then is anybody calling this is the question. Yes, so we don't need to pass that in. Don't need to pass that in. It's the small things in life, but anything that you can clean up a little bit, even if it's a small thing, helps. Let's just run all tests real quick to make sure we have not broken anything. Come on. All right, we haven't broken anything. So and other things I can't remember. Okay. So, close that out. That one's done now. So this one was kind of, where was it? Here. I have a changed to list to to array. So yes, to list is all over the place. Is it cheaper to, well, first of all, is it cheaper to make these two arrays rather than two lists? But now that I look at this even more to the point, because there's 6 of these. Method expectation builder. So what we're passing in here is methods. If I go look at methods here, why make it even a list? Why not just make it an IEnumerable? We already saw from tests that I was doing in the first part of this these streams for refactoring that there was a thing I changed that was returning a list to changing it to being a return of an IEnumerable. And it wasn't a big, I mean, we're not talking gigabytes, but if you look at the allocations from here to here, it was consistently less. Very small, but it was consistently less. So I'm kind of sitting there looking at this going, maybe we should just keep these as IEnumerables. You know? Because I only think these places, oh, they get called and... Oh, but it's down here. So it's the same thing. Oh, I think I see why. Especially with the properties. The reason why I do this is because I think I'm enumerating it more than once, I believe. And so when you have a list of items, you can just re-enumerate on them. I don't think you can do an enumeration on... I don't think you can enumerate an IEnumerable more than once. I don't think. Can you? One of the things I've never done. I never really even thought about it. Is .NET Labs back up? Does that work anymore? No, it doesn't. Oh, it does. Okay, they fixed it. Well, that's good. So let's say we had var names is equal to a new list of string. Yeah, you do. You should have. No, come on. What is up with this thing? What, you're not copy pasting anymore? Oh God, this thing, I tell you. People make these online code editors and then like, what is this? Why is this breaking so badly? If I say build it, yeah, it just goes spinning off into the weeds, which is not what I care about. Does SharpLab IO come from the brink? Does it work anymore? Var names is equal to new list of string. Connection loss, reconnecting. That's wonderful. I really don't know what's happened to these tools. And look at the main. It hasn't been updated for like 8 months. Oh, let's just do default. Okay, do you have? No, you don't. Of course you don't. Using system. And it's still got that error. See how it's doing that? Can I pass in? When you don't have your tools, you don't have your tools. And I just want to answer a very simple question. No, I'm not going to do this. I don't like this site because it's like blindingly huge. But if it works, it works. Jane list.add Fred list.add Hayden. I'm just trying to get names here. Joe, because I want to do a second enumerable. We'll see why. Okay, so let's get var j names is equal to list where. And now you need link, don't you? Starts with a J. Okay. And now I want to say, of the J names, I want to get var JO names is equal to J names where starts with, or we can say J-O. Okay, so that should get us all the Joes. Huh? Why are you saying that? I don't know. J names is equal to J names where, oh, now it goes away. Fine. No. So we want to say for each of our JO names in JO name console dot write line JO names, and then we want to do the same thing for, wait, we have this wrong. Names, and then this is names, name, and then this is J. Okay, where's the run button? Yes, you can do that. Okay, well, fine. And let's just, to really prove the point, I say for each of our J name and J names, console.write line J name. Run. Jane, Joe, and then Joe, and then Jane. Okay, so you can do that. That's actually, okay, cool. I didn't know that. My bet was that would work, but I didn't want to just blindly go in here and start changing stuff. So it seems like that should be fine. Because we're only doing wheres on these things. We're not actually adding to them or doing anything else to them. I don't think. So I think it should be okay to, instead of having these be two lists, is to just do that. And then this one now becomes an IEnumerable. I think this is also probably why I did this, because I was lazy. I'm trying to put a write line in between each method, except the last one, because I don't want to put a space. The whole spacing thing in this tool, in generating this code, is it doesn't matter, but I do like it to be somewhat clean, and so I did this, but it's kind of ugly. I like to be able to do it with every one except the last one. But how do I know I'm on the last one if I don't know what the count is? So it does get back to the question of one, do I change this somehow so that the write lines could be handled a little bit nicer? I don't think so, because we want it in every single one except the last one. So it's kind of ridiculous that I care about that. But if I don't preserve this one, all my generated code is going to be off, and that's going to be annoying to go back and fix. It's going to be hundreds of tests that I just have to reset, and that's ugly. This is also potentially one of the spots where that idea of the custom interpolated string handler could make this maybe a little bit easier to separate each of these with a right line, but yeah, it is what it is. So then that begs the question, is a to list more expensive than a to array? And do I really care? And with these, like, this one also does a lot with again, it's trying not to put a line at the end of it. So is allocating a list more expensive than allocating an array? It would be nice if I could do these with just enumerables, but that's not going to be possible. At least it's not going to be done easily. So if I keep this as a list, fine. And then up here, yeah, now it's going to be like, oh, you don't have this as a list, so you need to be to list. Okay, fine. But if I made these arrays, how far down the rabbit hole do I want to go on this? Lists versus arrays. Which one's better? I mean, you'd think that an array would be better for allocation. Like if I had a set of things and then I did a where clause on it and I did to list, compared to doing a to array, which one would be better? I guess we could just say screw it, write some tests. We have a performance playground. Lists versus arrays. Okay. So we want a global setup. We're going to want a memory diagnoser. Okay. And release. So we're going to want a private read-only string of names is equal to, well, I want to list the names. So, to the internets. Give me a list of human names. $1,000 random names. Yeah, but I don't want the numbers in front of it. Gee. Oh my God, can you just give me a list of names? Oh my God. Are you kidding me? How hard is this? There's a, I forget the name of the library, but there's a library out there that you can use I think to generate, I forget the name of it though. C# generate random human names. That's not, I just, I just want name. I don't even want names, Jennifer. There, maybe I can just. Could you possibly give me data? Things, data name, data, anywhere, project, resources, places. Raw. I just want names. That's all I want. Well, this is also going to be. Oh, God. I wanted it as comma separated, but. This is so stupid. This is just dumb. Okay, well, this might actually, if I can say here, replace this with a double quote, comma, double quote. Okay, so if I could say here, double quote, comma, double quote. That almost gets us there. In fact, it does get us there. That's perfect. See, I'm a genius. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to create an enumerable that private read-only IEnumerable of string 5 length names. So we want to say here this dot 5 length names is equal to this dot names, where the length is equal to 5. And we're going to suppress this because reasons. I don't want to have to fight this. Well, what I'm doing, I am doing some refactorings in a library that I've created called Rocks. The issue is in the description of the stream. So if you want to look up what it is, that's where it's defined. So what is this? CS. Oh, I just need to take that off. Okay, cool. All right, so now we want a benchmark public int get count via toList. And so here what we want to do is say this dot 5 names toList. There. And then we want to have another benchmark that says get the, we'll call it size, because one is count and one is length. So we'll say here get size via toArray. Length. So there's going to be some 5s in there. You're going to see like 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll have 75 names list. And again, we're talking getting we're getting methods and properties and stuff like that from a type. You're really hoping people, of course they can, but you're really hoping people don't make huge things. You know what I mean? Okay, so we have a benchmark with a memory diagnoser. What we want to do now is in our program, we want to say that. And is this our startup? No, but it's going to be. And run. Let's see if there's any difference between these. This is This is an exercise in being pedantic, if that's the right word, or futility. I don't know. But it's just for my own kind of edification in my head is saying two. I mean, if you can not even do two lists, that's even better. And there's this, I forget this guy from Microsoft. He has this whole presentation on the tragedy of two list, which is true. I mean, people just do two list on enumerables all the time, and they shouldn't. Yeah, an array is better. It is better. So, we're going to do that. It's not better by much, but it is better. And the speed, like you saw that the array one was slightly slower, but we're talking like a nanosecond. That I would almost chalk up to noise. I don't even think I would say that's something that we would really care about. Okay, so going back here, we want to say all the two lists are now .2. Come on. Why are you so slow? Hello? Keyboard. What is... Hold on. Sometimes Visual Studio gets really wonky with my keyboard. I don't know why. It just does. Like, it's still doing it. One moment. Let's see if that helped. Yeah. So what I did is there's a USB dongle thing or whatever that both my mouse and my keyboard use, and I just pulled that out of the this USB bus thing that I have, and that is what shares between my laptop and my desktop, which is what I'm running on right now. So I can just hit a button here, and if I'm doing stuff on my laptop, I can use a keyboard and mouse over there. So I just did the classic thing. So am I winning, sir? Yes, I am winning. Thank you, Goblin Slayer. I just pulled that out and plugged it back in, turned it off and on again, and it works again. So yippee. Okay, so let's change this into a method model of string. And again, this is really, really like, we're not saving tons here, but it was measurable. So we can say here, length, and then here, we're going to pass in that, thank you. And then up here, we're going to do that, thank you. Okay. And then that goes away, and then that goes away, and then we can say, whoops, yes, that. How many more errors? Length. Okay. Now, did that break anything? Again, like the billionth reason of why you have tests is because I can make these changes and know if I broke something right away or not. And I didn't. So that's good. So this one's a tiny win, a very, very tiny win, but it is a win, which is to, if you have to return something that you can't enumerate on for whatever reason, don't return a list, return an array. It will be slightly less memory. It's a small one, but now you can just keep that in mind and go, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do. All right, so let's commit that. 408. Return to array instead of to list, which is now going to beg another question in my head. We can get rid of the list of names here. So, where did I have this here? Here. So that one's done. But now, that makes me wonder. How many to lists do I have in my entire solution? Well, we have them in the tests. But we do have a couple. Or we have one in the actual code base. In the tests, there's 10. Which... maybe I don't need. So maybe I can get rid of these. Even if they're in the tests. Maybe not have them. The one that would really matter is, though, sorry, let's go here. Well, not really matter, but this is the one that's actually in code that the source generator has. So this one, you get the attributes, which is an array. Wait. And that is in Roslyn. That's not something that we control. So, and since it's an immutable one, so we need to go deeper. Could we... yeah, I mean, we could. Because, all right, this again is probably going to be something that is very, 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 very small. Which is we're getting all the attributes. That's the immutable array. If the property is not abstract and its set method is not null, then this is a case that showed up where it shows up on the value parameter of the setter if the property is not abstract and has a setter. So we need to go deeper. So in those cases, then we could change attributes. Like we don't, only in this case are we going to have to do this on the property. And so we can say attributes is equal to attributes add range. And then we return attributes. If we're on a getter, we don't have to worry about this. And so we could just literally return what this gives us back. Now, why am I doing this? Why would I just do this? Because I was making it a to list, and I don't have to do that anymore. And the reason I think I did this is because this is actually potentially a problem, is that for every property setter, if it's not abstract, then we have to do this. And so is it cheaper in the long run to have an immutable array that you create a new one when you add a range like this? Or is it cheaper to make a to list? But I like this here that we're returning a an array here. An immutable array. So to me, this reads slightly better. I mean, we're only going to do this in a set of cases. I'm not going to say handful because we will run into setters on properties. And so we're only going to do those on ones that are not abstract, because you can have virtual ones, but not that are not abstract. So this might come up. And what we could do is say, is save us some heartache here. Is say var set attributes is equal to this. And then say, if it's greater than that, then do this. Because if there wasn't anything, we're going to have to do this anyway. And then we don't want to do it again. All right, did that break anything? Man, some of these are just tiny wins, but it's potentially to get rid of some stuff. And that all passes. Okay, so this is part of getting back to, I'm trying to get rid of toList, right? And so we did that there. If I go back here and say, let's do the search again. Do I need that? Oh, I do. Okay, so yeah. And these are tests. It's not a big deal. Like, I get the source references, and then I'm just adding a source reference because I'm making a new compilation with a reference, and then I add that, and that's what I'm passing in here. Additional references aren't enumerable. Could you concat onto that? Because that's really all we're doing here, is we're saying that. Could we say here, concat append? There. And that passes. So we don't need to allocate a list there. It probably doesn't make any difference other than it makes the code, I guess, arguably a little bit easier to read, but that's probably arguable, if that makes sense. So now we want to say down here, source reference append, source reference. And that should work. All right. We are eliminating the toLists. You had it. There you go. Okay, and then we want to come here. And the same thing. We don't need that. Oh. Can we say append? And then down here. Yeah. Okay. Does that work? Some of these I'm just like, I'm a little... Okay, it does. I don't know why I'm hesitant about these, but I am. As is said in the movie Armageddon, embrace the horror. Okay. First source, second source. References. Append would add we do want to concat. What I wonder if we can do here is if we can take this collection expression and then put that in here. Yeah, that'll work. What's it complaining about up here? Oh, we don't have a semicolon. Okay. That would help. Okay, so now we have just a couple more? Oh. Well, that one was on purpose. That one we actually have to keep because that was in the test. Okay, so we can do that. Append. Oh, come on. Oh, you had it. Come back. Come back, Jack. Thank you. We don't need to do that there. We just need to make sure that we are adding it to that. Var Oh, we can do dot add. Append. Hee hee. Okay, do that. No. There. I think that was it. There's just that one. Yeah. Let's make sure I didn't break anything again. And I didn't. Okay, cool. So the tragedy of toList is no longer in our code. So we have addressed that here, but the last thing I want to do in this stream is one I was working on before, which is I moved this method, this getOptionalParameter, because it was in as a local method in 3 spots, and it did exactly the same thing. And so I thought, well, let's put it here, because that that's kind of doing what we want it to do and not having to have 3 distinct places to maintain it, which has sucked. That's one thing optional expectation parameter. Let's rename it. Let's call it getOptionalExpectation parameter, because that's really what it is. Okay, now though, how far do we go with this? Because I looked at the context around this and I went, well, wait a minute. All of this, you know, but this is where it gets a little tricky, is that you don't want to just, even if code is similar, if you start pulling it into a common place, it can arguably start making things more difficult. Because now there's this is generated with defaults, is not generated with defaults. And this is contextual to when you are generating the expectation, and are you currently generating it with defaults or not? So the thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is if I look at all the places that this is being used, like here, it looks very much the same. I mean, it's hard to maybe see this, but like this is the one's like, why are we using bill name here? We don't in other spots, but the method though we do because of the fact that methods can be have their own type generics, their own type parameters. Indexers parameters can't, or properties. I'm sorry, but indexers can't. So I think we're doing this because, again, of this whole build name and type naming context and all this crap. But otherwise, everything is exactly the same. And so do we lift this up even more? The problem, though, is that this is in the getter. Yeah, if you look at the setter, you'll notice that when we call it, it takes -2. And so I thought, could we potentially add something to the method that when you're creating a method, you're saying method wrapping context? And what do I mean by that? Because properties and indexers are syntactic sugar around methods. Okay. But here you can say if I'm on an indexer setter, I need to get the second to last parameter because of this whole weird thing I put up here. We need to put the value parameter immediately after self and then skip the value parameter, blah, 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 because you can't have optionals in an indexer, but then the last one is the value. That's what you're passing into the indexer setter. And so in that case, we would want to make sure we're getting the second to last, not the last. But because if we pass into this fictional get expectation parameter, because that's what we're really doing here, is we're trying to say for the given parameter on all these, do all this work. And if we can share that across all three, then it's not even the optional expectation parameter. We could make that private on a parameter model so that they can all use the same one. But we would have to pass in an amount of context here to the select to say, or it's just saying for a given parameter, we don't care how you take it, but how for a given parameter, could you do all this work on it? Because then it's a shared method that I don't have to update 3 times. arguably we would just take this and say, okay, plop it into a parameter model, and what don't we have? And that's what we need to pull out. Probably the generator with defaults is really it. And then, are you an index or setter? Because that would be the one case that we care about. So let us reason. let's have here an internal string get expectation parameter. Okay. And we're just going to do it on ourself. Now we plop all that in here. So in here, I want to say instead of parameter type, I want to say this type in the current block. Okay, that should get rid of a lot. We don't know what bool is generated with defaults. Okay, so we don't know what that is. Bool is indexer setter. Okay. Well, okay. Hold on. Let's get rid of one set of braces here. And we also need to return a tuple. String bool. And I probably want to name these expectation parameter bool needs generation but that, oh god, that's ugly. It's close except for a couple things. This has influence on the caller. Only set this flag if we're currently not generating with defaults. So we could set it to false, but if this is not, then we could say we could return it, and then the caller would have to do the or equals. With what we're saying is we as a property have this being this value, but then you have to handle it yourself. But if it was not generated with defaults, or if it was generated with defaults, then we would automatically return a false. And so the caller doing an or equals on it automatically, it would no longer be a problem, I think. Okay, so if we did that, and at the pointer, we don't care. That's not contextual there. So we say string expectation parameter bool needs generation with defaults. So if we do that, then we can say here we're returning that false. Okay. And then we can say var needs generation with defaults. Actually, we should name that there and say it's automatically false. And then here, am I winning? I don't know. We could say here needs generation with defaults. Okay, so that takes care of that problem. Okay. And so only in that case, and then actually, no, I'm sorry. We don't do an or equals. We say equals. Because now it's going to be that value, and we return that. The caller needs to do something with it. We still have the problem here, though, of going, if we look back on this, the build setter is a properties set method. But at this point down here, we're with the parameters. And it's the method's parameters. So the parameter knows its method, right? Like if I said here, this dot method, crap. We don't pass its parent to it, but we can change that. We could do that. We could change it so that it knows, a parameter knows its method. We don't have that though right now. We just would need to yeah. That's a problem. One, we don't have a difference between a constructor and a method. They're two different things in our model. Although with a constructor, we would never care, but a parameter shouldn't have to care if there's a difference between a constructor and a method. Whoops. This is where it starts getting down the rabbit hole again of should this care about it? Like here we're saying parameter model last parameter. And if we force the caller to give it to us, then we can just do this. And everything broke. Why? Cannot. Oh, that's why. Okay. We can say var here. Names equal to that. Okay, and then we can say here, return yes. There we go. So now we have this. And we could force the issue by saying this is now private. Now here's another trick we can do. Which is because now it's private, we could say string requires nullable. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore. Okay. Because we can pass that into here. Because it's needed in other spots. It's needed at least one other spots, but we don't need to recalculate it in here. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to take this whole thing, and this is where hopefully the magic starts. Which is instead of select parameter here, what we're going to say is return, well, no, wait a minute. We have to be a little careful here. Var expectation parameter needs equal to a parameter get expectation parameter. Is generated with defaults is going to be is generated with defaults. In this case, this is, yes, so this will be true. And then here, we're going to take this. Okay, now, We need to say needs generation defaults or equals needs. Thank you. Thank you. And then the rest of this can go away. And now we'll have to come back to this, but that now puts everything in there. So there's another error up here, right? So we can kind of do the same thing we did down here, except tweaked very slightly. Okay. So we say get method here, except right, and then we do that and that, except it's going to be 1. This is false because we don't have that, and then we do that. And then the only other spot we do this in is here. Okay, so now we can take this, and we'll take it from the getter. And we'll do that. Except we're going to say method here, right? Yep. And it's false. Boom. Now, we did that. First of all, does it compile? No. Oh, God. What did I break? A lot. I feel like I broke a lot. I'm breaking very much. It's all the code that's being generated in the integration tests. I did done break something awful. Okay, well, this wasn't... Well, it's only in 3 spots. How bad could this be? Oh, we're never using that. Why would that matter? We're forcing the caller to give us the last parameter here. So we don't need the index setter, but that's not really what the bug is. It just means that at these call sites we're passing in just things that we don't really need because we're making it so that this is but we done break something. Let's run the analysis test because that may show us lots of errors and then we can go look in deeper and see what we screwed up on. There's failures as expected. So what is it messing up on here? It's not getting the argument at all for equals. And that's a method. So that's interesting. Maybe we can clean up a lot of these here when we look at the method one. Because somehow we're getting it to not give us, we're giving it blank back. Which doesn't make any sense at all. Well, let's run this test. I'm not going to be in debug. Okay. So let's run this test to see why things are failing. We never hit that. Why are we not hitting that? I can't see a damn thing in this window. So that's the only thing that is different. Okay. But this is for the setup expectations, so we should be hitting this, but we're not. Oh. It's a little different with the method. Okay. Yeah. I didn't do this right. I need to... Yeah. That's the problem. With the method, we can't do the -1. I was doing that because of the indexers, but we don't do that here. Yeah. Okay, and then why are you formatting that way? Push that over that way. Okay, cool. All right, so now if we go to this test, does it pass again? It does. If we run all the tests for the unit tests, do they pass? Five failed. That's interesting. Why did 5 fail? Oh, crap. This is that whole naming thing. Oh, because the type arguments, this is actually what's proving to me to not change this. Because with indexers, you don't need that, but with the method you do. Okay. That's fine. Let's come back to the parameter model here and say, I want to finish this because I feel like I'm close. Type arguments, naming context, type arguments. Naming. So then here, we're going to pass that into here. So that's the only 3 places. Okay, so now it's forcing us to pass it in. So now what we want to do here is pass it in. And then in the indexer, we don't want to make another one. Just we want to have a type arguments naming context is equal to that. Okay, because now we'll just pass that in here and also here. They're meaningless. And then we'll do this. Wait, we'll do the same thing here. Oh, I never even... Oh, I did down here. I never... Okay. But that's interesting. Why did I pass it into... Projection builder, build argument? Do I not do that up here? Projection builder, build... No, I guess I don't. Why is that different? I don't know. We could just say here. Now I can say new type. Okay. Now we did that. And so now we're using that where we should be using it. Does that now clean up all the tests? Yes, it does. So now if I run all my tests, that passes. Okay. Here's the final big one. Code generation tests, make that default. Let's go to release and let that do what it needs to do. So I'll take a couple minutes. So what am I going to do if this succeeds? Then I'm going to go into... I could move this code now in here, but I kind of like it that it's separated out. It's just easier to read that way. And then here, I'm just going to get rid of this commented code here, and then here, and then down below as well. And then we should be able to move on. It's not the best, but it definitely reduces the amount of code, I believe. So, and it takes shared implementation, and there's actually something in my notes that I found too. Where is that? Yeah, like these here. In fact, the methods and the method types in general are almost identical. And that's something that really needs to be looked at. There's also in the make the same thing with the method void and value builders. They're also almost identical. And so it'd be nice if I could find a way to extract out the similarity and only pass in what's contextually different. I think, didn't I add comments to naming context? Yes, I did. So that is also done. All right, we'll give this a little bit more time. By the way, I haven't said it, but if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I would appreciate it. It's also the jump today in time because we did daylight savings time, so we jumped ahead an hour, which is also much fun. I personally wish we would get rid of that. I find that just ridiculous. Yeah, just like either move ahead a half an hour one time or fall back a half an hour one time or whatever, and then just say we're done with it, and that's the way it's going to be from this point on. But, oh well, we never do. We never will. I know there's probably lots of references of this online, but the concept of time, and I don't mean from a general relativity standpoint of Einstein and that, time is relative for everybody, and if you're going closer to the speed of light, time changes, and then, or if you're going faster than somebody else, all that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm talking about how we manage time on Earth. I think that would be an interesting book to write and talk about all the differences in like the history of time, how we measure time, how we do time zones, why do we do them the way that we do them. That'd just be something very fun and interesting. Or if there's already a book out there that does that, that would be really fun to read. And because I thought about this one time and I said, on Earth, like if I take, actually, let's look at the central time zone. If we can find a map on that. Central time zone. Wikipedia. Do they have a way to show time zones? No, that's not what I meant. Yeah. Okay. So if we looked at this map, not the greatest map to look at, but it works. Okay. I mean, Australia, like China, look at China. They don't have a time zone. It's all one time in China. India, I thought they did like 15-minute increments across, but apparently not. I was wrong about that. But you look here, like Sweden, Finland. No, I'm sorry. This is Finland right here. And then I think Norway's on this side, Sweden's on this one. I could be totally wrong. But this all follows a time zone until you get to Africa. And then whatever this time zone is not here in Africa. You look at America. So here's another thing. If I was in Wisconsin and I lived when I was growing up right near Lake Michigan, I wasn't on Lake Michigan's like beachfront property, but I was like half a mile or a mile off of the coast. And so you could see on a cleared area from our house, you could see Lake Michigan off in the distance. And I bring this up because if I was here, and then if I go all the way like to the end of Minnesota, which is probably around here somewhere, like that difference between the two is a little significant, even though they're going to show the same time on their clocks. But like in Wisconsin, they're going to see the sunset before you'd see the sunset over here, but you're actually seeing the same time. And so like wherever you are on Earth, you have a unique time associated with where you're at, if that makes sense. There's nothing to do with politics, geography. Well, it does have to do with geography, but politics, government, time zone setting, anything like that. Like if you're at this point on the sphere of Earth, your time is this. And somebody a mile west of you is going to have that time just a little bit off. It's going to be a little bit different. So anyway, I find the whole concept of time zones and measuring time and the fact that we used a 24-hour clock, which is just arbitrary in a sense. Why do we use, like you could say we use 60 for seconds because 60 is highly divisible. 12 is kind of two. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12. So, but it's like, why don't you have a metric clock? You have 100 seconds to a minute, and then you have like 100 minutes to an hour, and then you have 20 hours in a day or something like that. 10 hours, of course, how would you change that across the entire world? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here because I'm trying to pass time while this thing runs, and it passed, so that's good. Okay, so now let's go in here and remove this stuff. But it is also like kind of an encumbrance, the whole time zone thing, because some places in the United States don't honor. What is this here? I guess, but it's not a big deal. But there's some places that don't. And so whenever I was, especially in my consulting days, seeing people store or use local times to do calculations, I'm like, oh my God, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not going to watch like what you're relative to and when that time was made. So, and it happened. Okay, so we actually removed some code here. We were able to get it in here, and it's not the cleanest-ish, but it does. And this also is bringing up the point of this whole type arguments naming context thing, that we have to be really careful if we want to somehow associate that to a particular method. But that's another problem for another day. I've been streaming way too long in this. So let's commit this. 408 created a shared expectation parameter generator on parameter model. And then that takes care of this thing. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. And we did change this. Yeah, that's done too. Okay. Now, some of these are just combinations of right lines to things. Yeah, and I think this one is now done because it was related to... Whoops. If I go here... I think I took that comment off, didn't I? Because, yeah, up here. We're using I think that's where I had it, and I don't need to... It was line 48, which is now completely toasted because of all the changes I made. So we can just pull that up here on our list of stuff. This one is also now done. Naming context is also done. This is now done. Okay, so we've got these done. A lot of these that are left are just stuff with indentions and right lines. The really big ones that are left are this void and value builder and trying to create a shared implementation. This type argument naming context would be nice if we could do something like this, but I'm very hesitant to change that. So there's like one or two things that are kind of floating out there that are still somewhat biggish. And of course, refactoring code base is arguably never done. You can always find ways to make it a little better and a little better and a little better, but yeah. So I gotta ping Mitch again. Mitch, if you watch this, please come back. I want to see what you did. Maybe that can get things to that would all be at source generation time, but if I can make that faster, so much the better. I might do a bunch of these smaller things off camera because they're not that fun to watch. I think the last thing I would do is try to extract for these two, get them into a shared implementation, and then make a decision. Do I just keep this the way it is, even though it feels a little ugly, but maybe it's just the better thing to do? And then there's some smaller stuff down on here that's no consequence. So maybe I have 1 or 2 more streams on this, and then I can move on to something else. So with that, I'm going to stop the stream. I want to thank everybody for watching either now or in the future. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I am also going to be doing some gaming streams, at least one this afternoon, playing Stray, a cat game. Maybe I'll get done with it today, but if I don't, no big deal. But that is all for now. So thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.